Hello and welcome to my first build video. I'm planning on doing a few of the 144 scale models, starting off with British fighter Hurricane Mark 1. It's only a little kit from emodels.co.uk, make something awesome. I just have to say that, sorry. Right, it's that. There you go, one sprue, another sprue with a stand. And a canopy and decals. Right, very simple kit. It was all of about £2.69 I think, so I'm not expecting big things. The instruction manual for it is one piece of paper. Apparently it's from a game system, Art of Tactic World War II. Russian kit, Russian game. I've got no idea about the game, but if they do any more kits like this, I might pick them up because it's a very cheap way of doing it. Right, basically I'm just going to cut the pieces off the sprue, get it primed, stick it together. It says it's a snap kit, no glue required. We'll see how that works. Other than that, we'll see how it goes. I haven't been making models for a very long time, but all the techniques are going to be fairly basic. Anything special, I'll tell you about it. But hopefully we've all got a little something to learn, and I've got a little something to teach, and we're all here to have fun. Right, basically cutting off the sprues a little bit away from the model and then going back in again, cutting them off closer, making sure you don't cut off the little wheel at the back. They're going to need a little bit of sanding. There is just a little seam line down there. Again, I don't know how well these come out. Just a basic sanding stick. Just very lightly getting rid of the excess. Priming and weathering will cover a multitude of sins, so again, not being too worried about all of it. The main thing with doing these small kits is being aware of what's part of the model and what isn't. All the details are so small. Well, that's pretty much that for the first part. I'll get the rest of it cut up. I'm going to be having it on the flight stand, so I won't be using the wheels down. I have the wheels up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 parts to this kit. It won't take long. Once it's painted, I'll get it together and show you that, and then see what it's like when it's painted. Right, that's all the parts cut off. Now it is a snap together kit, but as these parts go together, I'd rather not have too much of a seam line there, so I'm actually going to use some talia extra thin to hold these bits together, and then that will hopefully just create a little bit of extra plastic to push out the edges, and that should create a better line, less of a join, although being in a corner is not too much of a problem anyway. So a little bit of that on both sides, just pressure on that while that sets. That will cause some of that just to come out the edges here. When that sets, I can sand that down very slightly, and that'll make a nicer edge there for underneath the primer. I'm going to put the wings and the 2 back fins in place first. The wheels I'll put on afterwards, as with the propeller, because otherwise I won't be able to get the paint in underneath properly, but I'd rather do the main job all together, especially the camo pattern, which will be another first for me. Easier to match it all in obviously once it's all together. So that's that. Those ones will go in there. Just like that. They're quite a good fit already though, so there is a bit of a seam line in there. You can just about make that out. So I'll just add a little bit more glue in there. That will suck it into the gap, and hopefully, yeah, just squeezing that together makes that pop out just that little bit. Just hold that for a few seconds while that sets. While I'm doing that, I can do much the same just to those two. Back wings, just hold them in place properly. Yeah, there you go, very quick drying. So, obviously the canopy will be the last part that goes on. There's no pilot or anything on there. The canopy is just a solid block of clear plastic. So I think I'll just paint the inside of the canopy black. With that on it, it will just blend in. There we go. Right, I'll get this all primed up, and then we'll see how it goes. Right, that's them all primed. It has shown up a few problems. There is a seam line that's appeared in the corner here. Not so bad the other side. The bits under the wings are actually okay. That's not so bad there. I'll add a bit of extra thin in there now it's primed, and hopefully that will fill it in a little bit. But I say, it's where a join would be on a real plane anyway, so I'm not overly concerned with it. It's not like it was right down the middle of the fuselage. Other than that, it's good to go. Once I've got that done, I'll put on a base coat of this is where I'm not sure, green or brown. There's green and the brown for the camo. I don't know which one's right to use as the first coat. I'm tempted to go with the lighter colour because then you can put the darker over the top much easier. So I think I'll probably do a base coat of the green and then the lighter brown in patches over it after I've masked off some of it. I'll see how it goes. Let's get some extra thin along those lines. As it's such a small scale, you can get away with quite a lot. If it was a bigger 172 or even bigger than that, obviously things would be much more visible. Now the extra thin does react with the primer somewhat, so I'll have a little bit of sanding to do and then give it another go through and see how that looks. If this all works out, a later video I will be filming some spraying and priming, but I've got to leave something for coming back for. So I'll get that done and then pick up on the other side. Well, that's it in the first colour, which is suspiciously similar to the colour it was before I did anything with it, but it's just the colour that I have that's most close to the lighter of the two shades of the camo that I'm after. If you noticed, I also did put the wheels on, because I figure they're going to be part of the camo colour anyway, so as is probably going to be a theme with my videos, ignore what I say, it's going to be different by the time you get to it. Right, I'm going to leave that to dry, then I'm going to mask it and do the other colour of the camo, and we'll see how that ends up. Right, as I said, this is the first time that I've done camo, so I'm going to go with the blue tack method. As far as I can gather, this pretty much involves putting blue tack on to mask off where you don't want to paint. So anything where I put the blue tack will be this colour, and when I spray the green over the top, everything that's not covered will obviously become green. When the blue tack's peeled off, you get the nice camo effect. Now with the blue tack, as long as you don't push it down at the edges, as I understand it, it will give a better feather effect rather than being a masking tape which will be a solid line. This will be slightly more shaped. The camo from reference pictures I've seen seems to be pretty much 50-50, so I'm just going to go and make up my own shapes and patterns covering this in blue tack, and then we'll see what it ends up afterwards. Obviously difficult to do on camera, so I'm going to do this, then I'll come back to you once it's done. And there we go. The bottom is going to be a different colour again, so I didn't need to worry about doing anything with that. But that's the front and the top. Just some fairly random splodges. And I'll paint the green, leave it to dry, and then get rid of the blue tack, and we'll see what the camo design looks like. Let's see how it got on. As I say, this is the first time that I've done this, so I've no idea how easy or difficult it will be. Well, that's not too bad. Pretty much exactly how I was hoping the edge would come out. Definite line, but not quite sharp. Okay, I'll get the rest of this off, then we'll go for the next step. Yeah, that came out quite nicely. Next time I think I'll go a little bit heavier with the blue tack to give a slightly more even mix, but all in all, not a problem. One little point here where for some reason the blue tack peeled up some of the paint, but the primer obviously hadn't quite adhered, but that will touch up without any major problem. Right, next up, the bottom, sort of a light grey blue. Being that it's just going to be the bottom that's done, as long as I'm careful and spray only in the one direction, I won't have to worry about masking the whole top of it. So I'll get that done and we'll see how that looks. Right, I'm quite happy with that. That's come up quite nice in a lighter grey without affecting the top at all. There's a little bit of bleed up the edges, which is fine. I also went ahead and did the centre of the propeller, as that needs to be the same colour again. I'll leave that to dry. Then we get some detailing on the vents and the wheels. We'll see how that looks. Right, I doubt this is going to work on camera, but we'll find out. Right, the idea is just to use some Talia rubber black on the wheels and the main parts of the propeller. The tips will actually be a different colour again, but we'll see. I'm going to try on the propeller and see if I can do it on camera. Obviously, again, being small, you do need to be quite close to it, and No, I'm not going to be able to get myself close enough to see what's doing and let you be close enough to see what I'm doing. So that's the basic idea, but I need to get closer in to see what I'm doing, so I'll paint this, then I'll come back and show you what I've done. And there we go, that's the black. Oh, under the light. I nearly forgot the third wheel, but remember to go back in and get that done. The propeller blades done in black. The yellow on the tip was interesting. The easiest way I found was just to have a paint and wet palette and literally just dip the end of each propeller into the yellow. Gives you a nice even depthing and looks good. Right, a couple of coats of that. It's obviously yellow over black, doesn't go very well. Right, that's that. Next up is going to be the some gunmetal on the venting, a little bit on the support for the rear wheel, and then that's it for the major painting. The inside of the canopy. I'm going to just do that in black, so give a better contrast when the clear cover goes on. Once that's done, that'll be the main painting. Then we're down for some decals, clear coat, then decals, another clear coat, then some weathering. See you in a bit. And there we have it. The canopy I've given the framework going over in green. The stand just snapped together. The propeller painted up. Plain black in the cockpit. Some gunmetal on the vents and the back wheel and the aerial antenna. All given a clear coat. So, propeller will snap onto the front, canopy will snap onto the top, decals, weathering. We'll see how we go. And that's the decals on. Just going to give them a touch over with microset just to get them bedding down. Then when that's dry, another go with microsol just to help them conform to the shape of the plastic underneath where it's on some of these ridges. And I'll throw it on the floor. Already with the decals on over the clear coat, it makes it look a little bit more real. Bare plastic is just a little too stark, but with some scale decals on, it starts to look like a little plane. The canopy is good to go as well. There's no point in putting that on yet because I need another clear coat over the top, which doesn't go well over the clear plastic. So, the cap back on the bottle. Yeah, when that's dried, another clear coat and then some weathering. And that's it. There we go. Used some microset. Microsol's the last one, which helps it really bed into the grooves. Left that to dry. You can possibly see the decals sit nicely into the ridges. Right, now time for another first for me. A dirt wash. I'm going to use Starship Wash from Miggy. First time I've tried this one as well, so we'll see how that turns out. The basic theory is you get a nice bit of the wash, and you add it across one edge, normally a panel line or that sort of thing. Obviously there's no panels on this, so we're just putting it along a leading edge. Let that dry a little bit, and then using some odorless thinner, which you get on the brush and then remove mostly, you can actually drag the wash down from the edge. Probably should use a slightly thicker, heavier brush. Bring it down from the edge, or across the wing. Not pushing very hard, just enough to grab some of the paint. Initially I'm giving it a nice even coat. I'm going to go in a bit heavier in certain places afterwards, just to bring out some more detail on the panel lines. But I say there's not really much, except for the flaps on this particular model, there's not much to bring out. Important to make sure that you use a clear coat before you use any thinners on the model, or you'll just end up taking the paint straight off again. This has brought down the shine an awful lot as well, so again, don't know how well it comes out on the camera. It's just darkened it down a little bit. Probably could go a little bit heavier than that. So better to go a little bit too light and then add more than a little bit too heavy initially. But right, I'll add a few more coats of that and a bit heavier in places, then see about adding some actual streaks. But I'll show you what it looks like in a moment. And that's pretty much it. I've given it a matte varnish. I'll keep it under the light so you can see it. The streaking just adds a little depth and something to it. You can see it better on the underside where it's one plain colour. Just a little bit of age and weathering. One last thing, now I've done the matte varnish, is to add something to the back of the propeller. I'm going to try a pigment, metal slag, lovely name. Again, pigment, something I've not done before, so we'll see how that works out as well. A lot of firsts on this video. Right, again, it's just the powder. So you load up the brush a little bit and dab it where you need it to be, hoping that this will just give the indication of, you know, the engine having run for a while and the propeller causing some blowback of dust and dirt. Going to get a little, oh, not that much, on the blades themselves, just to dirty them up a bit. If I can try and get it on camera. just to take the edge off, everything being shiny and new. And then just a little more matte varnish just to set that powder in place. And that is that. And that, as they say, is that. For a very cheap kit, I'm very happy with the way it's turned out. Not very much detail on it, but just enough to let you know it's there. It's more a suggestion of lines and panels than actual panels. The stand is pretty rubbish, but I might do something with that at a later date. But this was more about the model than the display. Very happy with the way the underside's turned out with the streaking and the lines. Doesn't look old, but it's old enough that it's been around a little while. The canopy is not a great fit, but again, how much do you really expect? All in all, I'm happy with that. I hope you enjoyed the build. If you haven't, oh well, maybe I'll get better next time. If you have, come and watch next time. Thank you all. See you again.